Well, speaking of the so-called Geneva two-peace talks, world leaders are in Switzerland and they're trying to hammer out the program. Our diplomatic editor James Bays is there and he's joining us now live to tell us what the update is and the preparations before the conference on the 22nd of January.
Well, that's when the conference is supposed to take place, and this is supposed to be the last meeting, preparatory meeting before that conference. But it's worth remembering this idea of bringing both sides around the same table at Geneva first came up in May. It was an idea from the Russians and the Americans. Secretary of State John Kerry and Sergei Lavrov on the Russian side agreed on this, and they've been setting dates privately every month since May for this conference to take place. And they've never managed to get both sides around the table. They've never managed to agree on the agenda or who was going to be in the two delegations. What happened about a month ago is they finally set a date, and I think the idea was to give everything momentum to force this to happen. They'd set a date. Well, I think now it's real make or break for that date of January the 22nd. Are they actually going to get the participants around the table? We think we know that the Syrian government, the Assad government, will send some sort of delegation to the talks. But what about the opposition side? The opposition have said, or certain members of the opposition have said, yes, they will come to Geneva, although they've said that they have certain conditions about the way this is all conducted. There are other opposition groups, as you heard a short time ago in that clip from our talks.Al Jazeera programme, who don't want anything to do with this Geneva process. So I think it's all still very rocky, and I think we'll be watching very, very closely when the UN Special Representative Lakhdar Brahimi briefs the press. That's supposed to be in about an hour's time, to find out whether January the 2nd is definitely on, or whether there is again some delay in this process.
Yeah, we will be watching that very closely, James. And there also is, and there always has been, the question of whether Iran will be attending the Geneva two-peace conference.
Absolutely. Who are going to be the international participants in all this? I can tell you the initial meetings here today had the Americans and the Russians with Lakhdar Brahimi talking about how it will all work. And then in the afternoon they brought in a wider grouping. They've brought in a representative of the European Union. They've brought in the other permanent 5 members of the UN Security Council. And they brought in neighbouring Arab nations. But of course the big debate is about some of the other Arab nations and some of the other regional nations that should be invited, as you say, particularly Saudi Arabia, which has close ties with elements of the opposition, and also Iran, which is the closest ally of the Syrian government, and still no final decision on whether they will be involved. I know that the Special Representative, Brahimi, wants as many people as possible who have influence, but certain other nations, the Americans for example, are wary about Iran being here if Iran is not prepared to sign up to the whole principle of all this, which is having talks and then coming up with a transitional government that both sides agree with.
James, I'm looking at a press release I have right here. It's from the Foreign and Commonwealth Office. It's saying that the UK is contributing to the destruction of Syria's chemical stockpile, an issue that's been ongoing, as you know, for a while. What can you tell us about the British experience of doing such a thing?
Well, this is news because we had in the past believed that most of the Syrian chemical weapons, if not all of them, were actually going to be destroyed by the US. And the plan is to take the Syrian weapons from where they're being stored across Syria, very difficult operation, to the port of Latakia, and then take them to transfer them to another port in the Mediterranean where a specially designed US ship would take those weapons and then turn them into much less harmful waste. It's interesting that the British are now offering their help as well. The British have quite sophisticated facilities for dealing with chemical weapons. Their laboratory at Porton Down in Wiltshire in southern England is a place where they've studied this for so many years, ever since the First World War. So it is something that the UK has particular expertise in.